Hi there. This is split off from my main review podcast for House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 4, because this is the subsection on major new character Alys Rivers, played by Gail Rankin. And she deserves enough attention. I'm splitting this off into its own video. This is a micro review just on that subplot. Similar to how, if you follow my channel, for episode 1, I split off Jace in the North with the Starks as a separate video because it's a little different from the books. I wanted to have it stand alone from the other stuff because it is physically separated from everything else. But this is focused on just Alys Rivers, that she will be a major character for a while. That even book readers, that because Fire and Blood ends abruptly, we don't really know what's going to happen with Alys Rivers. She will be with us in this franchise for years. Scottish actress Gail Rankin, who, well, I shouldn't say coming off of her performance in Broadway's Cabaret revival. She filmed this before she did the Broadway thing. She filmed this last year, but it's coming out now. But this is a review analysis, not so much book lore. I'm going to make a separate thing on book lore about Alys Rivers, which will be shorter. But in this, I just want to make my review analysis of two aspects of this. First, the design choices, which they discuss in the behind-the-scenes video, where they had a good 5-10 minutes talking about the design concepts that went into her, because she's a major character. They had a big subsection on that, about her costuming, about her design, her makeup, all of that. And then about what specifically Gail Rankin's take on the character is. Those two halves of it, the appearance and then the actor's performance. I tell you up front, I really love how Gail Rankin played Alys Rivers. I wasn't expecting this, and I was pleasantly surprised. That, of course, if you're like me, a lot of us saw that audition tape that leaked out back in early 2023, that this happens sometimes, happened with the Cargill twins, that when an actor doesn't get a role, sometimes they post the audition tape to Vimeo or something, and then it circulates with us, and they have to take it down because it was technically, they weren't supposed to do that. And they don't say what the role is, but we can figure out, okay, these are Ursat's names, they are clearly, in the audition tape, they refer to Weirwood as you, but Y-E-W, would, but you can tell in context what the audition tape is for with that other actress. So the weird thing was, Alys's scene with Daemon in this episode was the audition scene. And because we didn't have that much else to talk about in early 2023, filming hadn't even started yet. For like a good 2 months, everyone was watching this leaked audition tape, even when it was taken down, circling through social media and stuff. So I know all this dialogue, but it's another new actor's entirely different take on it. It is very different from how the how that original audition tape by an actor who didn't get the role chose to play it. It's very different, and I think for the better, in terms of delivery and everything. Now, going through the behind-the-scenes videos and stuff, they directly explain. Say this slowly for emphasis. The guiding principle that they had for Alys Rivers, stated aloud, is that they wanted to avoid the stereotype of a witch character, such as the alluring enchantress with a hint of creepy menace. You've all seen that. Or the sexy witch who's, I'm not even going to try to imitate because I'm bad at it, but like that alluring thing of maybe I'm a seductress, maybe I'm not. Instead, in terms of her visual design, which is what this stems from, that they said we weren't even going for, like, she looks like someone who came out of a Halloween store of what you expect normally traditional, stereotypical witches to be. Instead, they said her visual design is more subtle, that it's supposed to just feel a little off, mismatched from her surroundings. Not evil or creepy, just she doesn't dress like other people in Harrenhal. And they'll be talking about this more in other things. Shout out to Costume Co. who asked, and I said, oh, there's a whole thing in the behind-the-scenes thing I just saw like an hour ago, her video on the costumes in Season 4, and she knows more than I do. Costumes in Episode 4, she knows a lot more than I do about the things that they're putting into Alys's costume, but just that it was different The breakdown of this will be seeing more in terms of its visual hints of how she relates to other characters. That it's not creepy, it's not sexy witch, it's not alluring enchantress, it's supposed to be a little off and unsettling, subtly. And I'll explain that comparing the two, Gail Rankin's version versus the rejected audition tape, which was, I must say, stereotypical alluring witch. I can't ask you, if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, you're comparing your memory. We all saw it at the time, even though it's been taken down since, and I'm sorry, but comparing the two, like that big line where the one thing to focus on is when she says, "Oh, I'm not a woman at all, I'm a barn owl, cursed and to be trapped in human form." The other actress did it in a stereotypical, alluring, I guess the word is cloying, maybe I'm lying, maybe I'm not, that she said, "Oh, well, maybe I'm not a woman at all, maybe I'm a barn owl." And like, half seduction, half maybe sarcasm. The way Gail Rankin did it wasn't like that at all. It was this deadpan, serious, genuine, "Oh, I'm a barn owl." And like, you think she believes that you can't get a read on her. Was very different and much better. I shouldn't even say deadpan, because deadpan is when you say it flat. She says it matter-of-factly and genuine. I'm going to keep saying that throughout this video. I was not expecting that. It is a better choice because it's going against the stereotype. That you can't get a read on her. Just, is she lying or is she crazy and believes that? You never really know. And this ties into her age that, again, I'm going to talk about more of this in other videos, but that thing where, even in the book, they say we don't really know how old she is. And some people said, no, she wasn't the wet nurse to that character. She was the wet nurse to his grandfather. She's like 100 years old or something that no one really knows. In behind-the-scenes videos, they said something like she's 200, 400 years old, or she could be. That they said the point is the ambiguity. That when she said, they go, "Oh, she could potentially be 400 years old." That's more interesting than just saying, "Oh, she's 400. It's that whole, is she lying, or is she crazy, or is she really 400? And they're playing it deliberately ambiguous by having her just be really genuine when she says it. That she seems to believe it, and is she screwing with you? You can't get a read on her. I love that it's the word is unnerving. That instead of creepy or sexy seductress, it's just, you can't even tell if she's being negative to Daemon or trying to guide him or something. What is her goal here? We don't really know. Even in the book, we didn't really know what things. We know Daemon went to Harrenhal and eventually left. I don't have a problem with their inventing scenes with Alys Rivers with him because she was there. But what's going on with this, I think it's a lot more menacing when you can't get a read on someone of are they friendly or not. When someone who you know is a scary witch is saying something in a sinister voice, that's not as upsetting as this stranger is talking to me at the bus stop, and I can't tell if they're about to knife me or they're just kind of weird. Because you can't let your guard down. Even if it was a really, like, person with a knife, you know where the enemy is. You know where to keep your guard up. With this, when you can't get a read on it, that is scarier. When it's unnerving and unsettling, more than an actor chewing the scenery with an alluring witch voice. So I really love that. And thinking on it, I realized this makes her a direct foil to Daemon. That's Daemon's whole routine, that he's so unreadable sometimes. The word is mercurial. Changeable, that you can't tell what's really going on underneath or if he's lying. Sometimes he says things for impact that he doesn't really mean. Case in point from the script, not the TV version, the air for a day line in the first episode. I did a whole script report video on this where I said in the script version, originally we were going to actually see that. And it said, he says it in such a flat, deadpan way that for a long moment no one in the room can get a read on, what do you mean by that? Are you saying that as a flippant insult against your brother, or bitter self-deprecation, hating the gods for killing your nephew mere hours after he was born? And like I said at the time, I get that on paper, that you can write, no one knows what to make of what he said, because he said it very flat and deadpan. But it's easier in a script or in a book. In a book, you can say he said it in an inscrutable way. Like Tyrion can't get a read on Varys sometimes. But you can easily state no one can get a read on it, versus this would have been so hard to convey on screen, even with a great actor like Matt Smith. This is asking too much. So I said it was right to drop that, to have the line off screen and other people report it, so you're denied the inflection and denied actually seeing, well, what way did he say it? Leaves it ambiguous. That's what, and other times where he acts really menacing and he doesn't quite mean it, that he really does care about his family and wants to have their approval in his own way. That he's this passionate rogue, but there's things he wants and believes, that kind of thing. That's what Gail Rankin's Alys Rivers is doing, matter-of-factly saying things like, or like when it's a small council, they go, look, you're not going to have to maim half of the city to restore peace to it and fight crime. And he goes, well, hopefully not. And, like, you can't tell if he's being serious, the way Matt Smith says it. Alys Rivers is like that all the time, as Rankin is playing it. I think it's a brilliant idea. And that is the type of person who could unnerve Daemon, except someone else who messes with people by deadpanning ridiculous statements that might be half true you don't know. That's Daemon's whole routine. Moving on, though, as to her visual style. As I said, behind-the-scenes video, they said they wanted to avoid the stereotypical witch. They just wanted her design to be off, mismatched. Not off as in insane, like Bellatrix Lestrange, going crazy type of thing. Not like that at all. Just, it doesn't match the rest of Harrenhal. Or the people there, at least, that she's supposed to both feel of Harrenhal, but not of House Strong. Which makes sense, like her apron has weirwood prints on it, that she's of Harrenhal in the sense that she's of the old gods, of the weirwoods, not of the architecture and costumes of the other Strongs, because she stands apart from them. All of that. And some of this you wonder, like, well, maybe it's because she's a bastard of House Strong, but part of it's also, well, she's this mysterious figure there, you don't really know. Well, the big thing in terms of specifics they said about, okay, she's not a generic witch, what are you going for in terms of her visual look? They said very specifically it's supposed to, quote, convey aged grandeur, is actually what her design is supposed to look like. It's actually this really well-tailored, high-collared gown that she has made out of very good fabric. She does not dress like a servant. Like, she could be a noble bastard, that she has outfits like that, but she isn't just wearing scullery rags or something. And that makes a lot of sense if you're trying to portray a character who could potentially be 200 years old. They might be lying, they might not. It really leans into that whole, the Highlander thing, the vampire thing. Think vampire shows, okay? When they're done skillfully, that how would you really... Think of, as a thought experiment, if a character really was an immortal, like the Highlander or a vampire who was born 200 years ago, they would have fashion sense from generations ago, and not something hitting you over the head. It's supposed to be subtle, but I'm thinking of the vampires from True Blood, who, without emphasizing it too much, the older ones, you do get a sense that they dress the way people formerly would in the 1940s or earlier, depending on their age. That, well, it's not... Even the original Dracula he dresses in formal wear for a nobleman of the time. But that, how, it's hard for me to convey this verbally, how weird it would be to see someone dressed in subtle but noticeable Edwardian designs, or 1940s more likely, that, are you just wearing a retro fashion without being loud about it, without attracting attention? Or are you like 100 years old and you have the fashion sense of someone who's my grandparents' generation? So it's this 30-ish actress dressing in aged grandeur. I think of imagine a 30-year-old actress today wearing like the formal wear your grandmother wore, specifically, and just the visual contrast of that. But this is a medieval show, so they have to make her design different relative to everyone else, that it looks very formal, this high collar, that it looks like, is this the way people dressed during the Targaryen conquest? If and when we get a conquest show, I want to see if, like, oh, that's a style of clothing that went out a while ago. Like, as you would expect for, like, a vampire. That's older fashions that they would favor. So that whole thing, it's not supposed to be creepy, it's not supposed to be sexy, it's aged grandeur. Reminds me of one brief thing they said to the Melisandre actress, that they said, your character's really hundreds of years old, so even when she talks to old men, she talks down to them as if they're young boys, because she is older than them. She talks down to them like the way you would a child. Because, well, I'm the oldest person here. I have authority, so aged grandeur, and her designs are just a little off. And personality-wise, the bigger thing is that she is matter-of-fact, genuine, in order to unnerve people, and it's deliberately ambiguous. Another major aspect of all of this, which I would put a lot of thought into, as is my wont, in world building, her accent. Alys Rivers is the first time we've really had someone in the TV series with a full Scottish accent. Now, I mean, not too big of a surprise. Gail Rankin is Scottish. It is her natural accent. She's from Scotland in real life, but why keep it? The other actors have changed their accent for the sake of the show. And what did they intend by that? So let's pick that apart. That I've seen some snooty RP speakers saying from southern England going, oh, it's to emphasize her connection to the old gods of the First Men descendants in the north and beyond the Wall. Okay, the TV show established that the Starks and the Free Folk talk with northern England accents. They don't sound Scottish. And they do sound very different. That, not a linguist, long story short, Northern English often elides the R in the middle of words. Scottish clearly pronounces the R in the middle of words. It's called a rhotic accent. Compare the way, even in the episode, I just rewatched this scene before I made this. Compare the way that, with a Scottish accent, Alys Rivers says, a weirwood heart tree. She says heart tree. It was a grove of heart trees. And imagine Sean Bain in a Northern England accent going, I went down to the heart tree. That is that like an H almost. It's elided in a non-rhotic accent. Or the way, Sean Bain saying, it was a barn owl. She goes, I'm a barn owl. She has strong R's like in Scottish like that. That I'm cursed in human form versus cursed and tortured. I'm not a linguist. But yes, Scottish is different from Northern England. Okay, there's all these different other factors in there in linguistics and stuff. So she doesn't talk like, oh, it's to link me to the Starks and Free Folk right now. What I think they might be trying to hint at, and I'd ask, is accents across time. So it is to the First Men, but not the way you think. That it's not to imply, oh, I came down from the north or something. It's accents change over time. And what if she's supposed to be speaking in a very archaic, basically First Men accent? That this is the way the Starks talked 300 years ago, but the language has evolved since then. The accents shift over time, so they don't talk that way anymore. We might never even see that in a Targaryen conquest thing. That's one of the other questions for a Targaryen conquest show. Like, they said the accents have smoothed out since then. But, like, would the Reach sound different from the Westerlands? Because the book says the Reach does sound different from the Westerlands. Not as much as the difference between the way the Starks and Dornish talk, but enough that you can notice. So I don't think this is, to establish she's like one of the old gods people from the north. This might be a very archaic accent to them. It's not across space, it's across time, is what I think, that they want to establish that. So I think that was an interesting idea, and it ties back to that main design thing of she's not creepy, she's not a sexy witch either, she's not an enchantress. It's just her design seems a little off, that her clothing style doesn't match everyone else at Harrenhal. Similarly, the way she talks, her accent, seems out of place. Chronologically, not geographically. It's not like she's dressing like a Stark. She doesn't dress in the fashions of Stark women or other groups like that. This looks like, is this the Highlander? Is this a vampire? That Again, True Blood, when you see the vampires who dress like they're from the 1940s and have kind of an outdated accent. They work that in there. It's pretty clever world building. But the biggest thing to me is just that she says that not deadpan. She's not Wednesday Addams. That would also be a trope. She's, I wouldn't say cheerful, but matter-of-factly genuine. I'm a barn owl. Trained at just okay. I also love that she was pretty clearly, if you read the books, that I hope they're implying that she was making weirwood seed paste. That, if you crush up weirwood seeds into a fine paste, because, the weirwoods are magic and everything, it is a powerful, powerful hallucinogen. Because it's concentrated magic. You don't want no part of that shit. Weirwood seed paste. That stuff rots your brains. So there's this whole thing with Bran in it, and where's Jojen? Isn't there a little Jojen in all of us? I think Jojen might be here. So, going on, but I love that this is the type of person who would unnerve Daemon. Someone like himself, who you can't tell if they're bluffing. You can't get a read on them with their poker face, as it were. Russian roulette, not the same without a gun. I could go on, but the point is, with her poker face there. The other thing I really noticed is, because Daemon and Aemond are supposed to be foils to each other, Aemond does that too, where he says things so flat and serious that you can't tell, is he lying? That they say he does put on an exterior of infinite confidence, no one can hurt me, but then in private you see him hugging this matronly prostitute he's friends with, his relationship with, that he isn't a robot, he does have feelings on the inside, but more than Daemon, he's unreadable, because Daemon does that on purpose, but then there's points where he'll lose control and just get really passionate and flip out and beat a messenger half to death with his helmet because he gave him bad news. Aemond is a lot more enigmatic, whereas Daemon is capable of doing that to mess with people. It's a spectrum. He's capable of doing it, but ruled by his passions. Aemond, much more enigmatic and restrained, but the same thing of, what does he really want? What are his goals? They're ambiguous, his real feelings underneath. And he'll say things genuinely, but not as much to screw with people, but just to be a silent threat of, maybe I will. And eventually he will run into Alys Rivers, not getting it into spoilers, but because she's going to be in this for a couple of seasons, that I am looking forward to when this is a great pairing for TV Daemon. And by extension would also to see that playing off of Aemond with two inscrutable characters, and are they able to get a read on the other one? Would that attract them to each other? With when you run into a person like that, I don't know, but I wasn't expecting this of Alys Rivers, because Fire and Blood is just an outline. The only real description they gave, apart from that she must be older than she looks, even the serious historian said she had to be at least 40, she's older than she looks. She never had a line of dialogue. Like, there were messengers who came from her, but other than that, like, the one thing is they mentioned she had black hair. I checked. Other than that, relative to other characters in Fire and Blood, we don't know that much about Alys Rivers. I mean, obviously she's supposed to be a mysterious character. I mean, even, like, her appearance, the way she talks. They had to develop a lot with this, and I am really happy with what Gail Rankin has done with the character so far, and let's see where it goes.